There's a new twist to the ongoing controversy rocking the judiciary in Nigeria as the National Judicial Council gives the acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Ibrahim Mohammed, and the suspended CJN, Walter Onogen, 7 days to respond to different petitions against them. And that's one of the major decisions taken at the NJC's emergency meeting presided over by the former president of the Appeal Court, Justice Umar Abdullahi, at the nation's capital, Abuja, today. The 4 petitions considered today include one against Justice Onogen by Mr. Zikrilahi Ibrahim of the Resource Center for Human Rights and Civil Education, 2 petitions against Justice Mohammed, and one by the Center for Justice and Peace Initiative, and the other by legal practitioner Ulisa Bakuba. The NJC also considered a petition against the CCT chairman, Danladi Umar, by the Center for Justice and Peace Initiative, which was referred to the Federal Judicial Service Commission. In a statement, the NJC spokesperson, Soji Oye, says the council had to reduce the usual response time from 14 to 7 days because of the gravity of the accusations. In the meantime, Justice Walter Onogen has filed an appeal challenging the ruling of the Code of Conduct Tribunal at the Court of Appeal today. According to the appeal, the suspended CJN pleads that the chairman of the CCT and a member, Mrs. Julie Anabo, erred in law and violated the Constitution when they ordered his suspension. He also claims that the CCT chairman and Mrs. Anabo violated his right to fair hearing by not giving him the opportunity to fair hearing. He asked the court to set aside the ruling of the CCT, asking him to step aside as the Chief Justice of Nigeria and the chairman of the National Judicial Council. Despite the directive by the Nigerian Bar Association to boycott all court activities for 2 days, there was no total compliance at some courts in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, as some lawyers were seen at the court. At the Federal High Court in Abuja, several lawyers were seen, including those who waited for Justice Binta Nyako, who sat, although some courts did not sit. Some of the lawyers who spoke to our correspondent, Amaka Okafor, say they are at liberty to decide what they want to do.
Lawyers going in and out of the Federal High Court in defiance of the directive of the umbrella body of lawyers in Nigeria, the Nigerian Bar Association. Inside the Federal High Court, lawyers were seen waiting for the day's activities to commence. But this was not to be in some of the courts, as they were told to pick new dates for their cases, although no reason was given for the absence of the judges. In this court, some lawyers made a dash for the door on citing Channel's television crew. But some of them explained why they are in court despite the NBA directive.
Look around you. See lawyers, court is filled up. See lawyers grouped to hear their matters. They are ready to fulfill the responsibility, the professional duty they owe their clients.
In my respected view, it's an association of lawyers, so they don't give orders, they can only give directives. And you are at will, at liberty, to comply with a directive that is not, binding. Because the last time I checked, it is an association.
But Justice Binta Nyako began her sitting shortly after our camera crew filmed lawyers waiting in her court. Away from the Federal High Court, activities were scanty at the Federal Capital Territory High Court sitting in the Jabi area of the FCT. At the Apex Court, the course list indicates that the court activities continued despite the directive by the NBA. The directive by the Nigerian Bar Association did not affect activities at the Supreme Court, as the Supreme Court panel led by Justice Mary Odele sat to deliberate on cases before it. The Bar Association on Monday declared a 2-day boycott of all court activities in protest against the suspension of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onogen. The decision, according to the NBA, was part of the resolution which was reached at the Emergency National Executive Committee meeting of the association held in Abuja. Amaka Okafor, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the compliance across other parts of the country was greeted with mixed reactions. In Edo State, for instance, members of the Benin branch of the Nigerian Bar Association obeyed the directive, but the case is different in Jigawa and Lagos State, as lawyers continue their businesses undisturbed. Our correspondent, Victoria Ido, has this report.
This is the general belief of most of the lawyers at the Ikeja High Court today. Legal activities at the Ikeja High Court was not in any way hampered by the directive of the National Nigerian Bar Association, directing that lawyers should boycott the courts for 2 days. Lawyers believe that because they are being paid by their clients, they should go about their legal duties.
So is your court sitting? Is she still sitting?
The compliance team of the Ikeja branch of the NBA go from court to court to enforce obedience.
We have found out that some judges are sitting, and we are going from court to court to ensure that the judges assist in this particular struggle.
But they are met with stiff resistance. In their usual fashion, lawyers engage in argument as to the legality of the action of the compliance officer.
You are not with the masses, you are alone. You are not with the masses, you are alone.
They say their anger stemmed from the fact that their loyalty is to their client, not to the NBA.
Private business. What are you doing for us? What's the NBA doing for anybody? We pay you. We pay you.
The situation is not different in Jigawa State, as lawyers turn out at the court, not minding the directive of the national body. The chairman of the association in Jigawa State explains that they are yet to receive any formal instruction from the national body.
Even if we received an instruction from the national body, we have to sit down at the branch level and then deliberate on it, then take stand on it.
In Cross River State, South Nigeria, the story is different, as lawyers did not only obey the directive, but also defied the morning rain to demonstrate what they describe as an illegal suspension of the first Cross River State-born Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onogen. In Benin, the Edo State capital, a man tries to open a closed courtroom door, a clear indication that this court is not sitting.
No court, whether it's High Court, Federal High Court, State High Court, Court of Appeal, Magistrate Court, Customary Court, District Customary Court, any court at all, there is a total shutdown of courts. And we're doing this to protest against the illegal removal of the Chief Justice of Nigeria. As far as we are concerned, he's still our Chief Justice.
Although the compliance level with the NBA direction may not have been total on the first day, it remains to be seen how the boycott order will be enforced on day 2. Victoria Idowu, Channels Television News.
The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, has been bearing his mind on some of the issues he thinks is challenging the nation's democracy. He has accused the president of breaching the provisions of the Constitution and undermining organs and institutions of state. According to him, President Buhari has committed constitutional infractions in 5 areas. The list includes the purported suspension of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Walter Onogen, by the president, which not only breaches the Nigerian Constitution, but has also managed to undermine presidential democracy by assaulting one of its hallowed doctrines of separation of powers. The second allegation committed by the president is the approval of the purchase of Tucano aircraft, and that's according to the PDP candidate. Not done, he also hinted on the flagrant disregard for orders of courts by the current administration, especially in some cases, which in one of them he mentioned the former National Security Advisor, Colonel Sambo Dasuki, and the leader of the Shahid Group and his wife, El Zakzaki, who are being held in detention without trial for over 3 years, despite a court ruling to the contrary. And finally, on his list of allegations of infraction by the Buhari-led administration is the enactment of Executive Order number 006 as an executive legislation which permits security agencies to freeze the assets of persons standing trial or undergoing investigation without recourse to court orders, a usurpation of legislative and judicial powers of the National Assembly and judiciary. In the meantime, the APC national leader, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has taken a swipe at the presidential candidate of the PDP over some of his claims. Mr. Tinubu says, contrary to Atiku's claim of being a Democrat, the former vice president was one of those disrupting democracy and has been a blatant impunity in attempting to enshrine reactionary government and installing an unjust political economy on the backs of the people, reminding him of the seized Lagos LG funds despite court orders mandating the government he served to do otherwise. The APC leader goes further to fault Mr. Atiku's love for democracy following his alleged recent apologies to the PDP for not rigging the Lagos 2003 governorship polls, as was the case in other southwestern states. Now, on the suspension of the CJN, Walter Onogen, Mr. Tinubu says what the president did was to have the CJN temporarily suspended to get out of his chair so that serious matters against him can be heard by someone other than himself. Still harping on what he considers as Mr. Atiku's undemocratic disposition, Mr. Tinubu has asked the opposition candidate to find his voice, who did not find his voice during Abacha's suffocating maximum rule, and is asking questions which reads in part that was he not a member and cheerleader of one of the 5 Abacha parties, aptly described then as 5 leprous fingers of Abacha? That's the question the elder statesman of the APC is asking. The former Commonwealth Secretary General, Chief Emeka Anyoko, has asked the federal government to reconsider its stance on the call for restructuring of the current governance architecture and return to true federalism. The elder statesman also addressed the tripartite issue of INEC, the need for credible 2019 elections, Nigeria's current image among the Committee of Nations, and what he described as a displacement of the sanctity of human lives in the country. He says Nigeria is underperforming and lacking national cohesion as never before.
Nigeria's friends and the international community as a whole are watching the behavior of the federal government and its agencies, including especially the police, the army, and the other law enforcement instruments, to see how far they respect the country's constitution. Our Nigerian government, like all other governments over the world, while of course guarding its sovereignty, should pay heed to the views of the international community. Otherwise, the country will return to the pariah status which it happily exited in 1999 when it once more embraced democracy. I urge INEC to remain aware of the fact that the credibility of the results of our forthcoming national elections will depend on the level of impartiality and transparency it demonstrates in ensuring that all aspects of the elections are free and fair.